Now that all the competitors have been seated, writing is allowed. As mentioned, the competitors have been briefed on the well, that's your problem.
Well, I got
As I said.
What is this? Timekeeper.
That's,
Okay, you can make left. Appreciate that. Yes. Now that all competitors have been seated, writing is allowed. As mentioned, the competitors have been briefed on the competition and realize that the general discussion should be directed towards each other rather than the audience. In my role as moderator, I will not attempt to control direct this discussion. Remember, discussion is meant to resemble a committee meeting with the end goal of determining possible solutions to the question at hand. This is not a panel discussion with point, counterpoint, and active moderators. As such, I will not intervene unless inappropriate remarks are made. With that in mind, the burden is on the competitors to moderate themselves and conduct themselves in a cooperative manner. The question for this round is, advancements in autonomous equipment and drone technology offer solutions to challenge farmers and ranchers have faced for years. How can Farm Bureau improve access to and help farmers and ranchers deploy these emerging technologies on their operations? The competitors for this round are Nathan Dupree, Willie Crump, Dan Brubaker, Adam Caldwell, and Chris Fox. We will begin this discussion meeting with 30-second opening statements from each competitor. Following the opening statements, will be 25 minutes of open discussion, followed by 1 minute of quiet time for the competitor to prepare their 1 minute closing statement. Official time is kept by the timekeeper. Competitors in voluntary order, make your 30-second opening statements. Please stand and direct your opening statement to the audience. The timer will indicate when your 30 seconds have elapsed by holding up a red card. You may begin.
Bob Dylan once said, times are a-changing, and I think that's true today. We've seen technology from milking systems all the way down to variable rate irrigation systems and technology on tractors improve over the years. I look forward to discussing with this panel about how we can help those farmers and ranchers access and employ the technology that's already available. Thank you.
I recently listened to Dr. Gary Moore discuss about the top 10 developments in agriculture over the last 100 years, with number one being computers. Computers have obviously changed how we operate our farms and run our ag businesses, and I believe over the next 100 years, the technology is going to continue to be in the forefront of ag innovation as we move forward. And so today, I feel like it's imperative that we discuss this topic at length to help our ag community to navigate this technological era. I look forward to discussing this topic with you today.
American farmers and ranchers always have to be innovative and adaptive. And that's exactly what we do with these new technologies that come at all times. I believe as part of the Georgia Farm Bureau, we need to assist our ranchers in helping implement these new systems and getting them out to our farms so we can be as successful as possible as a community.
The autonomous farm equipment market is $62 billion and expected this year to increase to $68 billion by the end of this year. By the year 2026, it's expected to grow to $97 billion. That is a lot of growth in a short amount of time and a lot of opportunity to our industry. I feel like the Farm Bureau, we can discuss today how they can help our industry grow with the technologies that's growing. I look forward to discussing this topic with you all today.
In 1836, John Deere invented the steel plow that could cut through the Midwestern soil without clogging up. That was a turning point in agriculture. We're at another turning point today with the advancements of autonomous machinery, drones, computers, and all those things that we've discussed already. And my belief is that it's not so much what Farm Bureau can do, but what we can do through Farm Bureau that is the difference that we can make. I look forward to discussing this today.
You have heard the opening statements. Competitors may now proceed with discussion. Competitors, please direct your discussion to your fellow panel members.
But kind of like I was saying, Mr. Crump and I, we talked about embryo transfer in cattle today. We discussed a technology that I didn't even know existed. And I don't think it's so much what we need Farm Bureau to do and go out and do. It's things like this. It's the Young Farmers Conference. Get together. I would have never heard of that technology that you said your friend at UGA is working with now. It's getting together and saying, hey, what are you doing on your farm? What are you at UGA seeing? What are you at Virginia Tech seeing? And just discussing that. Getting into county meetings, having more county meetings, really. I would say my biggest complaint is that we don't have enough meetings to get together and discuss what's going on our farms. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it too is just, whenever we meet with Farm Bureau, a lot of times that stuff stays internal. And then somebody might go to cabinet association, then we keep all that internal. Whenever we do different things, like, I don't farm for a living. So my job, whenever I learn something different, we can bring that back to our meetings for the farming community as well. And just, hey, this might not be something that we generally use here, but it's something that can be used and can be more efficient for us at the same time. So I think, trying to help crossbreed what we do in our daily lives can help a lot.
I think that it's important that we discuss these technologies, but, sometimes in the real world, cost becomes part of the factor. And I think that one of the things that Farm Bureau could look at doing is to look at what is it going to cost for this new technology for a farmer to use it? Because, making it economically available to the farmer, I think is the first hurdle. There's lots of technology out there I would love to have on my farm, but being able to afford it at the size of my farm is another obstacle. So I think that one of the things that we can do as Farm Bureau members is have these discussions, like you talked about, they're important. Have these discussions, but also at the same time, look at talking to industry officials and trying to make these inventions that are coming out affordable to the modern farmer and affordable to us as we continue to grow our respective businesses, and to make sure that we have that knowledge to say, hey, this piece of machinery could make my farming operation this much more effective and efficient. And so I think making them available, making them affordable is our first hurdle.
I think it's a good point, Mr. Crump. You bring up the technology, and in that encompasses the issue of that technology and the data that comes with it. I know recently the right to repair legislation was a really big topic. Not to get off on a separate tangent, but that same idea still exists here with who controls the data this equipment is part of. Tech is obviously a really big issue in consumers across many industries. I think one thing Farm Bureau can look at, I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with the commodity committees that Farm Bureau has. There's about 20 of them. And that resembles what American Farm Bureau has, which is the issue advisory committees, which aren't exactly commodity related, but there's energy, technology, and so forth. I think Georgia Farm Bureau could look at maybe creating a technology issues advisory committee, bring together some of these farmers and ranchers that are using this stuff, discuss what their real issues are and how they can be addressed by people that are the boots on the ground. What do y'all think about that idea?
Yeah, that's a good idea, Nathan. Change is coming whether we like it or not. As the world grows, we're gonna have to produce more food for the consumers, and improving the technology, that's about the only way we're gonna have to do it. So we can be more efficient and getting that done for the consumers and technology. That's about the only way we're gonna have to do it. We can't do the same thing over and over, and we're gonna have to expand into different outlets.
And I think that's important when we look at supply, because when you look at the growth and what foods we're going to need to produce over the next 50 years, it's kind of scary. Looking at it now, but looking at this technology, I feel like technology is going to bring an improvement for us as farmers to help us to be able to meet that need as we go forward into the future. And so I believe that it's imperative that we continue to look at advancements in those areas. But, when you talk about making more food and developing these things, I feel like that grabs the attention of the public to help us to reach that and making those connections outside of just our circle of farmers to help get others on board. And because it's really a worldwide effort for us to make sure we have enough food, not just us. So what do you think about that?
I kind of want to circle back just a little bit on what you talked about, the cost on some of these things. Just in my encounter with the farmers that I know, a lot of times we can't afford the autonomous technology. I was looking at drones that can spot spray fields now. And that's amazing. Those drones cost $20,000, $25,000, $30,000. And I can't justify that. I don't know anybody in my area that can justify that. But there are companies that will come out and do it on your farm for you. And developing that list of, if a company will come out and I can go to Farm Bureau and say, hey, what is the name of XYZ company? And they say, here's their contact information. And I pay them maybe $500 to $1,000 to come spot spray my fields for me. I can do that. So developing, in my opinion, I think Farm Bureau can develop a list of providers that offer these services. And that's just one thing. We want to get into talking about autonomous tractors and things of that nature. We row crop, and we just had a guidance system put on our tractor. And we had to go all the way to Auburn, Alabama to find a company that would come out, put the tractor together, wire it up to the planter and make it work. And we had to do that on our own. That took weeks of finding, we found multiple companies, and then we finally found one local that would do it at an affordable price. If we could have gone to Farm Bureau and just said, hey, I'm looking to do this. And they say, we've done this already on Farmer John. He did it. Call him and ask him. Or a guy in the south part of the state did it. Call him and ask him. We could have cut our time down and increased our profit. So I'm kind of touching on a few different subjects there as far as making money and saving money. But my big push for Farm Bureau would be to, find these guys for us, cut our time down. Our time's valuable. And that increases our profitability. We can stay in the field and make a better crop to help feed the world.
Farm Bureau, they have more of a connection with these industry leaders that can help us find these industry leaders like with John Deere, different systems that can get these to the farmers for a cheaper price, or companies that can come out and, like you said, spray with a drone. So you would have to be cheaper paying them to do the service.
That's right.
Farm Bureau can connect us with those industry leaders for that.
That's right. That's what I really see is a realistic solution. We're talking about realistics here. What can Farm Bureau implement now, today? Let's build these lists. Let's talk to John Deere. Through American Farm Bureau, we have the connections. Let's find the guys that can help us out.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying is that education of what's out there needs to be available. That leads me to my next point that, education is important for the farmer to know what is available right now, to know how to use it, how it can be used in their operation. And I feel like, maybe having some sort of educational aspect added to Farm Bureau for the farmer and be able to know these technologies are out there if you're a crop farmer. These technologies are out there if you're a dairy farmer. These technologies are out there if you're growing this thing or that thing. And to be able to give those technologies out there to the public. I think about, bringing technology to someone like my father. Okay, he's not very technological savvy. It took him years to be able just to carry a cell phone before he actually saw that it was useful. And getting out there to that audience and getting them to be able to have that knowledge of what they can be doing on their farms, because I believe that there's so much useful stuff out there that they would want to use if they just knew about it. And a lot of people don't have access to having that knowledge. And so education on what is available, I feel like is another point.
And I look forward to like the breakout sessions that we'll have here. You know, I don't know exactly who's going to be speaking, but I hope they address some of these. If they had a drone pilot come down here and have one of those sprayers, oh, I'd be out there all afternoon taking a look at it. But yeah, I think Farm Bureau's kind of implementing that right now through breakout sessions and conference and all of that. But yeah, it can definitely be a lot more, in my opinion.
Mr. Crump, I'd like to circle back to, you talked about cost, and we all know also that proprietary data that I mentioned earlier, a lot of the research and studies that you can find online all deal with farmers that have had to sign non-disclosure agreements for their trial studies. And so there's no access to that data to be able to create a cost benefit analysis, which also goes to what y'all talked about with cost. So I think Farm Bureau, from a legislative standpoint, maybe should look at creating a waiver that the ag industry or ag partners can look at to have access to the data protected by those non-disclosure agreements. And we can then look at it, estimate what's really going to be helpful for the farmers, and then see where we can implement it, or like I said, it might be something that just has to be outsourced, because on your operation, it might not make sense to have one of those, I looked at it, it's a DJI T30 drone. There's a Ohio Farm Bureau member had $25,000-$30,000 for that one piece of equipment.
Right.
That's a good bit of money. So if we can pull those people together, get access to that data, and create some research available to producers and industry users, then we'll know whether farmers actually need to have those capital investments.
Yeah, really be able to see their return on investment and what our lifespans are of some of this equipment as well. I mean, that's just something kind of will, and Dan, what you were touching on, you know, us being able to have that information and then be able to spread it to folks, because I mean, the way you touched on it, I know my father would never touch half this stuff. He'd be afraid. So we, you know, really got to have our folks be able to go out there, you know, field reps, whoever, and just really explain them, hey, that $25,000 drone might not work for you. But Dan, as you alluded to, this company that's down the street, you know, we can explain that to them, and you don't have to touch it. You don't have to learn about it anymore. I can eliminate one piece of the pie out of this process for you, and it'll just take out some time and can really, you know, assist in the long run.
And kind of, I think we're kind of building a list right now, like short-term and long-term goals. I think definitely what Nathan was saying about getting the data and being able to analyze it is a great thing. That's going to take a little bit of time. And then my idea is a little bit more short-term, as far as, you know, let's network today and tomorrow and Saturday. You know, let's talk to people. Hey, what are you doing different on your farm than what I'm doing on mine? And what technologies have you implemented? What are some other long-term things we could think about?
Well, I think that when you mentioned networking, that gives me the idea to think of, hey, you know, we keep getting bashed on carbon and all of this stuff that, you know, our cows and their farts are ruining the atmosphere. Well, you know what? If we got technology that can help us grow things more efficiently, that helps to make things growing more efficiently. Well, hey, there are a lot of people out there. There are a lot of people out there that would be on board with that. That would say, hey, you know, if we can grow this much more produce with this much less of a carbon footprint using this technology, I think that's a discussion we can take out to network the people way outside of where we've been used to talking. And I think that's something that we should be able to take forward.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's something that we could possibly, you know, take not only to the state, but also federal legislation, you know, our folks that we have. Hey, if we're reducing our footprint, is there some way that we can maybe get some kind of tax write-off, or, you know, some sort of help, you know, of a long term, you know, if we can set something up as a grant, whatever, to help purchase these products, you know, and that would definitely help in the long run for us. I think that would be something both sides might agree upon, because, you know, that's one thing, is they're looking at environmental. Obviously, they don't think that we do our part as environmental, but I mean, as Tom always says, we're just trying to handle
I think you brought up another important topic we shouldn't rush off is legislation at the federal level. We all love some regulation, say that sarcastically, but if we don't get out in front of it now, somebody else is going to or is already there, and California really is already there. The California OSHA Occupational Safety Hazard Board has the most stringent guidelines and regulations on autonomous equipment already. Some of the equipment is regulated down to the operator must be present and at controls of the equipment. The machine can't move more than 2 miles an hour, and we're trying to be efficient here. And so on, where basically you're taking the autonomous part out of it. So if the federal level starts to pick up on what California is doing, then that's what we're going to be stuck to. But if Georgia, for instance, who doesn't have any legislation, starts to maybe put in a little bit at their own state level, and we control it to where it's efficient for us, makes sense on our bottom line, and it's reasonable, then we can push the federal government that direction instead and pull them away from California, where we have a better say in what's going on our farms. Because at the end of the day, we're the ones that have to live with it and make decisions to help feed our neighbors.
And I think that's how, we relate to these organizations, a lot of these environmental organizations to say, hey, we gotta use this thing efficiently so that way we can improve things. Because I think a lot of times, they don't realize, because they're not farmers, they don't realize that the regulations that they're putting on us are actually having the opposite effect. And in this case, it would definitely suit them.
That stuff that Nathan's talking about out in California, that when you look at it from a cost perspective, if I or an employee is still gonna have to be on the controls of that machine, why do I even buy it? There's no telling what a truly autonomous tractor costs, but if I'm still gonna have to have an employee sitting on the tractor, why would I spend the money on that? Other than perfectly straight roads and things of that nature, but it all breaks back down to cost, and I've always heard, look at California and what they're doing, and that's what we're gonna have to do in 10 years, 20 years. I won't do that, and so we need to talk to the lobby guys up in DC and say, hey, that's not smart, guys. It might work for them, that's not gonna work for us. And again, I think that's probably a long-term goal. We're really getting ahead of the curve, because that's something I don't even think is on the plate yet. But yeah, I really like that idea, and I think that's something we definitely need to talk to Tom about, and talk to the powers that be about, hey, we need to get ahead of this, because it makes no sense.
Well, I think through the Help Farm Bureau and what we're discussing here today, I believe that we can get ahead of that curve, and instead of us looking at California to say, hey, that's how we want to do it in the future, maybe they need to be looking at us and say, hey, well, maybe that's how we do it.
Yeah.
To help bring some sense to the situation. And when you look at regulations, we're talking about those too. Those all come back to us helping to work with the agencies that be to help them to understand the farmer's perspective, and that's one thing the Farm Bureau does exceptionally.
Well, I think public perception on all this is going to be a big thing too. Our young farmer district, we just went up to the dairy up in Augusta that has, I think it's 2 or 3 robotic milkers now. And I was talking to the guy that owns it, and he said, yeah, it's great. We have to do the maintenance and everything on it, but we're able to cut our costs. We don't have too many employees, and the cows, they can go in that machine as many times as they want to get milk, until they're milked out for that day. And he has converted his old milking parlor into agritourism type of thing, and brings in people, not just young farmers, not just Farm Bureau, but if you come in off the street and say, hey, I want to look at your operation, he says, yeah, come on inside. And I think that may be something we have to look at with this stuff too, is if we start implementing more computer systems, more autonomous machinery, I can only imagine what public perception is going to be if, robots grow our food, robots are producing our chicken. It's going to go totally out of left field. And so I think the farmer is also going to have to be open to that. If somebody wants to take a look at what you're doing, come on in. Like, we want to see the data that, John Deere has on their computer systems. We need to kind of be an open book too, to the public, to, keep our public perception, in good standing.
Well, I think robotic dairies have started to just take hold recently, and they're a little bit ahead of that curve, in the fact that they're becoming more and more popular, and they're seeing that they're efficient, they're seeing that they work, and they continue to change and innovate in that demeanor to, well, hey, now we have robotic feeding. Now we have not just robotic milking, but we got robotic feeders and all these things. And with a time where we have lack of labor, what better time to bring that to the forefront of farmers to get their interest? Because, you know, hey, this thing can help save you this much labor cost. And just look at the whole thing and go over it from that economical perspective.
5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of something that I was thinking about just looking at this question. You know, this topic is this technology, you know, kind of how we were talking about earlier, but being able to discuss with the farmer and show them what it can do. It helps in those times whenever we get COVID. Shoot, good luck getting folks, or whenever we have visa problems, getting everybody in. It can help, but as long as we can also show that not only to the farmers, we know it, but to the public. The same type of thing, that's another thing we can bring up, legislative times, things like that. Hey, we don't want to have shortages, or, you know, how we're having now problems with, you know, folks and everything. This can help. And so, I mean, it's just almost fighting battle that we have all the time, just trying to teach folks.
Teaching folks, and this brings up another point that Mr. Crown brought up was the average age of farmers now is a gazillion years old, and quote me on that. So this technology that we're using, we need to showcase it more, and I think this conference is great for showing us, but we know it. We were raised with cell phones in our hands and computers that we're able to get to anytime we want, video games, but those older generations, we need to be looking at bringing that technology to them at conferences and being able to showcase it. So at the end of the day, those decision makers around our farms and on our farms can see what's really important and how this technology that's already available that has been able to be used for a while can mean more to your local economies of scale for farmers and agriculture.
I mean, just like you said, just touching on age. I mean, it's the length and time span of what it's going to take to get paid for some of this equipment. Like, heck, they're going to try and use an autonomous tractor right now. That thing's not going to get paid all by the time they have to hand it down.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to really be able to show them all the books, the long-term help and savings of it as well. And that's something where I know that's not me, but a rep from one of these companies or whoever, like you said, of having them at these conferences, but at the December conference. And, you know, that's the one where we really have to hit it.
But kind of like y'all were saying, you know, when my dad, he's 65, when he started the dairy in 1983, there were dairies everywhere. Now there's one where we're at. And so the farmers of that generation, number one, are getting older, but they're few and far between. And the young guys that are coming up now, there's even less of us. Finding somebody that's a true everyday farmer is tough. But we're all open to autonomy. Because like Chris said, I can't find help. You know, we're having a hard time right now finding anybody that will come out and work. If you were able to show me how a computer system or something like a drone would help me out, I think any farmer of my generation is all about that. Because like you said, Nathan, I was raised with a cell phone in my hand. If I can do it off my cell phone, I'm all about it. And that's why I say, yes, show it at December, but also show it at the young farmer, because we're receptive. We will use this. And I think that as our generation starts to take over those family farms, we're more and more inclined to use this technology, to be open to showing people how we're using it, to network like we're going to do this week and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. What are you doing? So I agree with all of your points and say that I guess the only kind of disagreement is, yeah, we should show it in December at the big conference, but we need to show it right now too, because we're the guys that are going to actually put it in motion.
Now, I don't mean to take away from here, But
Right.
definitely,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
lower generations, they need to see that how easy it is to use and what it can mean to their bottom lines. And I think that's all going back to, bringing back some of those waivers for non-disclosure agreements and, maybe create an issue advisory committee at the state level.
You know, going back to my dad and his lack of technology, you know, he doesn't want to carry his cell phone, but he realized really quickly that it was going to be very effective to help him be a better farmer, better husband, better dad, you know, whatever. But I think the case here is when a farmer, no matter his age, when you set him down and you show him how it's going to help make his life easier, help make him more profitable, he's going to listen. And I think that that's one of the pieces that we have to get out there to them. What pieces of technology can they use to help them to be able to be more profitable? And they are profitable, those.
Please, very closing statements. I ask always remain silent out there. For 1 minute, to aid and comfort competitors in their preparation. Please put down your pencils and volunteer or please stand and give your 1 minute closing statement.
Well, guys, I really appreciate, the discussion that we just had on this. I think we all understand that this new equipment, these technologies that we have are definitely going to be the future. And as you touched on, probably what we need to do is keep on our networking, just like we are going to do this week. We also need to probably get some sort of list of vendors together to try and help our farmers and actually be able to be more efficient, since like you said, we had to waste some time. Adam, as you noted, we are going to have shortages if we don't start implementing this stuff. We have to be more efficient. Nathan, as you noted, we do need to get in there and do legislation as a long-term goal. We got to get ahead. We don't want to be the next California. We all know we want to be that every single time. And we'll, as you noted, I mean, the feasibility of this equipment, money-wise, and just being able to implement it on our systems, we do have to look out for that. And so as a whole, I think if we bring all these ideas back to our
That's
level,
1 minute.
We can all agree that the technology is there and it has been. I think some long-term goals, like we mentioned, was creating an issues advisory committee at the state level, to create some state legislation, get access to some waivers over those non-disclosure agreements to help reach that data that we need to run cost benefit analysis for our farms. I think we need to look at getting ahead at the state level on that legislation so we're not California. Another point that was brought up was just a short-term goal is getting outside your fence rows and talking to your neighbors, collaborating with them about what they're doing and how they might be leading in that area for their industry, and find people even maybe regional that are doing those things that would help your bottom dollar. Another thing that was mentioned was incentives or grants to help offset those carbon footprints that we hear so much about at the local level. So I think we've all come up with a lot of really good ideas.
I think we've had a good discussion today. I think that we can look at 3 different areas that we've come up with some solutions. First thing I feel like that we've discussed is the cost of technology has got to be made available to our farmers at an economical rate. This includes helping us to find the Farm Bureau potentially helping us to find the economical way for our farmers. One of the things that Nathan mentioned is, you know, we've got to have those non-disclosure agreements. We've got to be open about what we're doing and to create some conversations there. Chris also said that, hey, we have to look at the return on our investment and look at those avenues of cost. The second thing I feel like we need to do is that we have to be educated on what's out there. Having education on what technology is available and is available to our farmers. And then, of course, the third thing would be the networking of organizations, getting out there, networking with environmental organizations, looking at grants, as was mentioned today, and then being able to come up with regulations and getting those regulations to keep from squeezing us out. And I think that will help us.
I'm a list maker, so we made a short-term and a long-term list today. Short-term is great because we can implement it right now when we walk out of these doors. Network, breakout sessions. Let's learn about this stuff. Let's talk about it. Long-term, like Nathan alluded to, we need to get some of the advisory committees together on technology. And then we need to be working through state and federal government on getting carbon credits for using things and implementing these on our farms. Building a company list is another long-term goal so that we're not having to pay each farmer individually for this cost. We can hire companies to come do it for us. And then working on the right to repair, working through that with companies, with private individuals who aren't necessarily farmers. And just getting out there and creating a voice for farms or for farmers is what Farm Bureau is all about.
Well, I enjoyed this discussion with everybody, and feel like what we talked about and discussed, it is going to help us with the future of our agriculture industry and the technologies like what Willie brought up about the cost. How can these farmers afford this technology, and how Farm Bureau can help them with that. And Chris, he brought up the labor of how this technology is going to help with the labor shortage and how we can get through that. If we go through another pandemic or some of these shortages we're having in our grocery stores and different markets. And Nathan, he brought up the regulations. Sounds good. We got to get with our legislation because they are the ones that decide the laws and policies that involve our farming industry. Dan, the networking, that's a good way to network with our different industry leaders. You brought that up, and they can help us fulfill this goal of being more technology in our industry.
That's one thing. Let's show these competitors our appreciation for a job well done. Judges for today's competition are. Good question.
Heather King, Georgia Farm Bureau.
Heather King, Georgia Farm Bureau.
Levi Davis, Georgia Farm Bureau.
Levi Davis, most of forgotten stuff. What's your name, sir? I'm sorry.
Levi Davis.
Levi. Okay. Now I'll ask the judges to exit their tabulation room, please. Thank you to our judges and timekeeper. We appreciate your efforts this afternoon. All the judges exit.
And what is repeat on?
We would now like each competitor to make a brief statement about themselves, their Farm Bureau experience, and their connection to agriculture.
My name is William Crump. I am a member of the Habersham County Farm Bureau. I serve on the Dairy Commodity Board with Habersham County, Georgia Farm Bureau. I'm an agriculture teacher in Habersham County. I own a couple cattle businesses. We own Crump Dairy Replacements where we sell dairy cattle across the country. And then I also own Southern Roots Cattle where we focus on selling beef to the public and also raising registered semi-tall Angus cattle.
I'm Dan Brubaker, Northwood County. I grew up on a dairy farm, and then we transitioned to beef cattle, and we got into row cropping. I personally own 4 pullet houses and run about 60 head of brood cow or Angus.
My name is Adam Caldwell from Habersham. This is my first year attending the Young Farmers Conference, and I work on work on layer houses. 4 layer houses.
Chris Boggs, Cherokee County. I'm the Young Farmer Rancher Chair for our county. I work for Georgia Power, so this is just my side gig is doing Farm Bureau stuff. My wife and I, we have a hobby farm at the house. We got horses, rabbits, shoot wildlife rescue, so we get involved in the door of who knows what at all times. Like we just had a raccoon that year, so that was fun. But I've been coming to Young Farmer Conference for quite a few years. Came before I even moved to the state, when my wife was on the state committee, so, but I enjoy it.
Nathan Dupree. I worked for Farm Bureau for about 5.5 years. I left a year ago to start law school, and this is my first year having an opportunity to sit on this side for once, and look forward to competing on. And that's I'm a member of Cherokee County Farm Bureau, and I'm the Young Farmer Board there.
Thank you, Pat. Examination of rankings for 2 round robins will be used to determine the top 16 competitors who will compete in the semifinal round of discussion league. Then, based solely on scoring of the Sweet 16 round, the winner of each round would advance to the Final Four. The competitors advancing to the Sweet 16 round will be announced during the 3rd general session at 1:30 this afternoon. Question for round 2 is, many external influences are causing supply chain disruption for agricultural goods. How can Farm Bureau reduce the impact of external influences through policy development program? Competitors, please leave your name card on the front table as you exit. Thank you for being such good audience. We appreciate your interest in the competition and your support of the competitors. The next round begins at 1:30 p.m. Please meet in meeting room 7 at 1:15.